They say life doesn't warn you before it changes forever. Sometimes all it takes is a road, a smile, and a single turn you never make it back from. It was supposed to be a night of celebration. The rain had just stopped when Daniel and Clara Weston dressed for the anniversary dinner of an old friend. Clara's laughter echoed through the hallway as she fixed her husband's tie, teasing him for being late again. Their 12-year-old daughter, Maya, stood by the doorway, rolling her eyes at her parents' playful bickering. She loved watching them like that, like the world outside didn't exist. But the world, cruel as it is, never asks for permission to take away your joy. Hours later, flashing red lights painted the wet asphalt. Twisted metal, shattered glass, a soundless scream swallowed by sirens. The Westons never made it to the dinner. And by dawn, their daughter's laughter had turned into silence. The next morning, grief sat heavy over the Weston home. Neighbors whispered, reporters speculated. But the question on everyone's lips was the same. Who would take care of Maya? Clara's cousin, Elena Carter, was the first to arrive. She tried to keep herself together, holding the girl close, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Then came Dr. Adrian Miles, Daniel's best friend, the man they called Maya's godfather. They hadn't seen each other in months, and for a reason. Elena and Adrian once shared something fragile, something that could have been love, but life, or maybe Adrian's obsession with saving others, ruined it. He was a trauma surgeon, the kind who lived in hospitals and forgot birthdays. He missed dinners, anniversaries, and even the little moments that built relationships. Elena had walked away, tired of waiting for a man who always had time for the world, but never for her. Now fate had forced them back into the same story. Only this time, a child's future depended on them. The lawyer's office smelled of paper and tension. Maya sat quietly between them, clutching her small teddy bear, while the lawyer read the will that changed everything. In the event of our passing, we, Daniel and Clara Weston, request that our daughter Maya remain in her family home until she turns 18. She shall be cared for jointly by Dr. Adrian Miles and Miss Elena Carter. If either guardian chooses to marry before Maya's 18th birthday, the other may withdraw, but must remain involved as a visitor. Should both parties refuse, Maya shall be placed under state care. The room fell silent. Elena blinked. You've got to be kidding me. Adrian leaned back, jaw tight. Apparently, they had a sense of humor. The lawyer cleared his throat, unfazed by their glares. I assure you, this is legally binding. What followed wasn't a conversation. It was a crossfire. Adrian accused Elena of being impulsive and emotional. Elena fired back that he was cold, self-centered, and incapable of commitment. Every word cut through the quiet like a blade, until Maya's small voice broke the noise. Mom and Dad wanted you both not to fight. Her eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. That was the moment neither of them could walk away. 2 weeks later, the mansion that once held laughter now held awkward silences. Elena moved into the guest room downstairs. Adrian claimed the study upstairs. They lived like polite strangers under the same roof, bound by a will neither of them had the courage to defy. When Maya was around, they acted like everything was fine, like doves, calm and composed. But once the girl went to bed, the house turned into a cage of pride and irritation. Adrian spent most nights at the hospital, returning with tired eyes and guilt heavy on his shoulders. Elena worked remotely, sitting at her laptop in the garden, sipping coffee and pretending not to care that he barely noticed her presence. To him, she looked too comfortable, too idle. To her, he looked too consumed by work to understand what peace even meant. Yet, despite the silence, something unspoken lingered between them. One night, Elena found herself staring at a photo of Daniel and Clara on the wall, their wedding picture. The love in their eyes felt eternal. She wondered if such love still existed in a world that moved too fast to notice it. Then she heard the sound of the front door creak. Adrian stepped in, exhausted, his white coat draped over his arm, tie loosened. He nodded at her. No words, just a weary glance, and walked past. Something inside her clenched, not because she hated him, but because maybe she didn't anymore. That night, as she checked on Maya before bed, the girl asked softly, "Aunt Elena, will you and Uncle Adrian stop fighting someday?" Elena smiled faintly. "We're not fighting, sweetheart. We're just learning to be friends again." But even she didn't believe her own words. As she closed Maya's door, she caught Adrian watching from the hallway. For a moment, their eyes met. Two people standing in the ruins of what they once had, holding the weight of what they might never have again. In the silence that followed, neither spoke. But somehow, the air between them carried a promise neither of them understood yet. They say tragedy doesn't destroy love. It reveals it. And though none of them knew it yet, this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of how love, loss, and fate would test what they thought was already broken. Because sometimes, the greatest families aren't born from blood, but from promises made on the edge of heartbreak. They say when two broken hearts share a roof, silence becomes louder than words. For weeks, the Weston mansion echoed with the rhythm of an uneasy peace. Maya's laughter was the only sound that reminded them the house was still alive. Every other moment felt like walking on glass. Elena tried to create normalcy: breakfast by 7, school drop-offs, homework in the evenings. Adrian, when he wasn't at the hospital, tried not to exist. He'd return late, eat whatever leftovers she left on the counter, and disappear upstairs without a word. It wasn't hostility. It was exhaustion. Two people pretending not to care while caring too much. On one particular Sunday, the air between them snapped. Elena stood at the kitchen counter, stirring coffee, wearing an oversized cardigan that hung off one shoulder. Adrian walked in, half awake, scrolling through patient updates on his phone. "Morning," she said quietly. He grunted something that might have been a reply. "You know," she added without looking at him, "a simple good morning wouldn't kill you." He looked up from his phone. "I've seen enough people die to know what kills them, Elena. Morning greetings aren't one of them." She turned sharply. "You're impossible. And you're dramatic." Maya, who just walked in, frowned. "Are you two fighting again?" Both adults froze. Then, like clockwork, fake smiles appeared. Adrian cleared his throat. "No, sweetheart. Just discussing adult things." Elena added, "Like who's washing the dishes tonight?" Maya giggled. "You both sound like my teachers." It was enough to break the tension. For now. Days passed, and the house adjusted to its strange rhythm. Maya adored Adrian. She called him her superhero doctor. She'd wait by the window every evening, counting down the seconds until his car appeared in the driveway. He always promised to take her for ice cream on Saturday. That Saturday came and went. Adrian was called into emergency surgery after a pileup on the freeway. He didn't look at his phone for 12 hours. By the time he got home, the house was dark, and guilt clung to him like sweat. He walked into Maya's room and found her asleep, still in her day clothes, an untouched ice cream coupon by her pillow. Elena sat by the bedside, arms crossed, eyes tired. "She waited," she whispered, "all day." He ran a hand through his hair. "I couldn't leave. 3 people would have died." Elena sighed. "I'm not asking you to choose between saving lives and keeping promises. I'm asking you to remember you made one. Her tone wasn't angry. It was heavy with something worse. Disappointment. He swallowed hard, then nodded. I'll fix it. See that you do, she replied, walking past him. And that night, he stood by the window, watching the city lights, realizing that for the first time in years, he'd let someone's silence hurt him. The next day, he made it up to Maya. He showed up early from work, bought her the biggest chocolate sundae in town, and took her to the park. She laughed till her cheeks hurt, teasing him for being the worst promise keeper ever. Elena watched them from a distance, smiling, despite herself. When they returned home, Maya proudly declared, "Girls rule. We forgive, but we don't forget." Elena laughed. "That's right." Adrian groaned. "So this is a team now? Girls versus the doctor." "Exactly," Maya yelled. "Girls supporting girls." He chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm outnumbered." Elena smirked. "You always were." It was the first time in weeks they all laughed together. And for a fleeting moment it felt like a real family. But peace never lasts long when pride lives under the same roof. Adrian began noticing little things. The way Elena worked from her laptop all day, wearing soft sweaters, sipping coffee while tending to the garden. To him, it looked too easy. "You ever think about doing something more ambitious?" he asked one evening, leaning on the doorframe. Elena glanced up. "Excuse me? I mean, you're smart, talented, but remote writing gigs and home projects. You could be doing more." She set her laptop down slowly. "I am doing more. I'm helping raise a child who lost both parents. That's a full-time job too, Dr. Miles." He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Her words hit harder than he expected. She turned back to her screen. "Not everything that matters comes with a paycheck." And once again, silence won the argument. Later that week, her friend Tessa stopped by, loud, bold, and unfiltered as always. The kind of friend who didn't whisper even when she should. "So," Tessa said, lowering her sunglasses, "you're living with your ex?" Elena rolled her eyes. "It's not like that. It's for Maya." Tessa smirked. "MHM. For Maya. So what's it like seeing the man who once forgot your birthday, but never forgot how to ruin your mascara?" Elena choked on her coffee. "Tessa." Her friend laughed. "Come on. You can't tell me you forgot how he—" "Stop." Elena cut her off, cheeks flushing. Tessa grinned. "Just one time, huh? And you still talk about it. I should send you a toy or something to keep you occupied." Elena waved her hand dismissively. "You're insane." "Promise kept," Tessa said with a wink, grabbing her purse. Neither of them knew that joke would soon backfire spectacularly. A few weeks later, Elena came home from grocery shopping. Adrian stood by the door holding a small brown package. "Delivery came for you," he said, handing it over. She frowned. "I wasn't expecting." Her words froze when she saw the sender's name, Tessa. Her mind screamed, "Oh no." Adrian raised a brow. "Are you gonna open it? Or should I guess what it is?" "None of your business," she snapped, snatching it from his hand. He smirked. "You're blushing. That's suspicious." "It's private." "Well, since it came to our house." She turned sharply. "Don't start." He leaned closer, teasingly. "Relax. Whatever toy you're hiding, just remember to keep the volume low at night. I have early shifts." Her jaw dropped. "You're disgusting." He laughed, holding up his hands. "Hey, I'm just saying, real machines right here if you ever get bored of batteries." She gasped, mortified, stormed past him, and slammed her bedroom door. From behind it, his laughter echoed through the hallway, deep, amused, and, somehow strangely warm. That night neither of them slept much. Elena kept replaying his teasing words, half annoyed, half something else. Adrian lay in bed staring at the ceiling, realizing for the first time in years, someone had made him feel again. Maya's footsteps echoed faintly down the hall, her soft voice whispering to her stuffed bear, "Maybe they'll stop fighting someday." If only she knew that beneath the sharp words and sarcastic smiles, something fragile was already stirring again. Something neither of them wanted to admit. Because sometimes, love doesn't need an invitation to come back. It just finds its way through the cracks of an unfinished story. They say love doesn't always knock. Sometimes, it sneaks back in, disguised as laughter, jealousy, and awkward moments you swear don't mean anything. After the package incident, the house became a stage of unspoken tension. Elena avoided Adrian like he carried the plague. He, on the other hand, couldn't resist teasing her every chance he got. If she coughed, he'd ask if it was battery-related. If she dropped something, he'd grin and say, "Careful, wouldn't want your toy to roll away." Maya, blissfully unaware, thought they were just being funny. But for Elena, every sarcastic grin made her heart beat faster, for all the wrong reasons. Or maybe, deep down, she wasn't sure they were the wrong reasons at all. A few weeks passed, and life began to look almost normal. Maya was healing. Her grades improved. She laughed more often. Sometimes, she'd sneak into Adrian's study while he worked, pretending to be his assistant. Other times, she'd sit with Elena during online meetings, sketching little drawings beside her aunt's laptop. For a while, peace lived quietly in that house. Until it didn't. It started with a dinner conversation. Elena cooked pasta, garlic bread, and wine. Adrian arrived late, as usual, wearing that same apologetic half-smile that always melted her irritation before she could voice it. They ate mostly in silence until he cleared his throat. "So, how's your remote life going?" She set her fork down. "You mean my job?" He smiled. "I'm just saying it must be nice. Working in pajamas, sipping coffee, setting your own hours." She smirked. "Jealous? Of pajamas? Never. Of freedom, then," she shot back. He leaned back in his chair. "Freedom's overrated. Purpose keeps people alive." She raised an eyebrow. "And what's your purpose, Adrian?" "Saving everyone but yourself." The table fell silent again. Even the clock seemed to pause. He sighed, pushing his plate away. "You'll never understand." "Because you never explain," she replied quietly. And for the first time, there was no sarcasm in her tone. Just truth. He looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how long it had been since someone had called him out without anger. That night, when Maya went to bed, Elena sat in the living room scrolling through her phone. An ad for a dating app popped up. "Find someone who sees you," it said. She hesitated, then downloaded it. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for things that were never coming back. The next few days, Adrian noticed something different. Elena smiled more, checked her phone constantly. Sometimes, she even hummed while cooking, a sound that used to mean she was in love. One evening, she walked past him in a red dress. Simple, elegant, dangerous in its subtlety. "Going somewhere?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Out," she said. "With who?" She smiled. "Someone who remembers birthdays." He froze. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She grabbed her purse and left before he could respond. Hours passed. The house grew quiet. Adrian sat in the living room pretending to read, but his eyes hadn't moved from the same line for half an hour. He checked the clock. 11:30, then midnight. When she still hadn't returned, irritation disguised itself as worry. He called her. No answer. He called again. Nothing. When she finally walked in close to 1 in the morning, heels in hand, perfume trailing behind her, his patience snapped. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" he demanded. She blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me? I called. You didn't pick up. I wasn't aware I had to check in with you." His jaw tightened. "You live here. I thought something happened." "Well, nothing did. So you can go back to your perfect schedule, Dr. Miles." Her sarcasm stung. "Why do you care who I'm with?" she added sharply. "You made it clear I wasn't your priority." His next words came out lower. "Because it's not just about you anymore, Elena. There's a child in this house." Her voice rose. "Don't hide behind her. You're jealous. Admit it." He stepped closer. "Jealous? Of some random guy who doesn't know the first thing about you." Her breath hitched. "Then tell me, Adrian. What do you know about me?" He hesitated, eyes locking on hers. And before either could stop themselves, the distance between them disappeared. Their argument dissolved into a kiss. Angry, desperate, familiar. It wasn't planned. It wasn't gentle. It was years of restraint exploding in one reckless moment. When they finally broke apart, Elena's eyes were wide with shock. She stepped back, shaking her head. "No, this is a mistake. Elena, don't," she whispered, voice trembling. "You don't get to confuse me again." She turned and ran upstairs, leaving him standing alone in the dim light, heartbeat echoing in the silence. The next morning they acted like it never happened. No words, no eye contact, just tension thick enough to choke on. 2 weeks passed like that. Elena threw herself into her online work and dating apps. Adrian buried himself in the hospital. Maya felt the distance but didn't understand it. She just knew something was off. Her aunt looked sad. Her godfather looked angry. And the house, once again, felt cold. One evening, Elena went on another date, this time with a man she'd met online. He seemed kind, soft-spoken, a churchgoer who said all the right things. He called himself Brother Caleb. But masks are easy to wear. He invited her to his apartment for a quick prayer before dinner. What happened next wasn't prayer. When he tried to force himself on her, panic took over. She managed to break free and run, her clothes torn, her heart racing. When she reached the house, Adrian was still awake, sitting by the window, restless. He saw her stumble in and didn't ask a single question. He just wrapped his arms around her as she trembled, whispering, "You're safe now." That night, she cried in his arms like a child, and he held her until she fell asleep. The next morning, Caleb showed up at the house, holding her purse and scarf she'd dropped. Elena froze when she saw him at the door. Adrian stepped out before she could speak. "You should leave." Caleb smirked. "You must be the doctor. You don't scare me." Adrian didn't answer. He punched him, hard. The fight was quick but brutal. By the time it ended, Caleb was bleeding, and Adrian's lip was split. Elena rushed to him, shouting, "Stop it! You'll get arrested." He wiped his mouth, eyes burning. "No one touches you. No one." She stared at him, stunned. Not by the violence, but by the raw protectiveness in his voice. That night, while cleaning his wounds, the silence between them softened. Her hands trembled as she dabbed antiseptic on his cheek. He winced. "You're terrible at this." She smiled faintly. "You're a terrible patient." Their eyes met again, not angry this time, just full. "I shouldn't have kissed you that night," he murmured. "I shouldn't have wanted you to," she whispered. Neither spoke for a long time after that. But the way her fingers lingered on his skin said everything words couldn't. From that night on, the house changed. Maya noticed it first. The smiles, the softer voices, the shared glances. Elena laughed more. Adrian teased less. And for the first time, the girl felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died: peace. Because maybe love doesn't always start with fireworks. Sometimes it begins with forgiveness and a promise to try again. They say after every storm, the sky doesn't apologize. It just shines differently. That was how the house felt now. Not perfect, not fixed, but lighter. Elena's laughter started to sound like music again. Adrian, for once, came home before dark. And little Maya, she noticed. She saw the way her godfather looked at her aunt now, softer, quieter, like he'd finally remembered how to breathe. Peace had found its way into their mornings. Breakfast wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was full of teasing and gentle bickering. Sometimes Adrian would help Maya with homework while Elena cooked. Sometimes they'd all watch old family videos together, the kind that made them laugh through tears. For the first time, the house felt like home. But healing, like love, has its own tests. One evening, while Elena was sorting through her cousin's old things, she found a small photo album tucked in the corner of a drawer. Inside were pictures of the couple. Maya's parents, smiling, young, radiant. On the last page was a photo of all four of them. Her cousin, her cousin's husband, Adrian, and Elena herself. She hadn't realized how happy they all looked, how close they once were. Adrian walked in quietly behind her. "I remember that day," he said softly. "Your cousin made us take 100 pictures before she was satisfied." Elena smiled faintly. "She always said we looked like a double date gone right." He chuckled. "We almost were." Their laughter faded into silence. Then his tone softened. "They would have been proud of you, you know? The way you take care of Maya, of us." "I'm just trying not to fail her," she whispered. "You couldn't. Not with the way you love." For a moment, they just stood there. Two souls rediscovering the rhythm they once lost. Days turned into weeks. The bond grew unspoken but strong. Elena started visiting Adrian at the hospital sometimes, bringing coffee or lunch. The nurses whispered and smiled. The doctor and the woman who finally made him human. He didn't mind. For once, he liked the label. At home, Maya began calling them Mom and Dad by accident. The first time it happened, they both froze. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but Adrian just smiled and said, "It's okay, sweetheart. We're family." And just like that, the word family stopped feeling borrowed. One rainy Saturday, Adrian came home early with a bandaged arm. A minor accident in surgery, nothing too serious, but Elena fussed like he'd been shot. She scolded him, wrapped his arm again, and muttered about how he didn't know how to rest. He watched her in silence, the way her brows furrowed in concentration. "You care too much," he said quietly. "Somebody has to," she replied, taping the bandage. "You still love me, don't you?" The words slipped out before he could stop them. Her hands froze. "Adrian, you don't have to say it," he interrupted gently. "I just needed to." But she didn't walk away this time. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe I never stopped." He smiled. Not the confident, teasing smile she knew, but something softer, rawer. "Then let's stop pretending," he said. He reached for her hand, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. From that moment on, things changed in the quietest ways. They shared dinners, stories, late-night talks that stretched into dawn. Sometimes, Maya would sneak downstairs and find them asleep on the couch, her aunt's head resting on Adrian's shoulder, his arm around her protectively. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Weeks later, Adrian planned something unexpected. It was Maya's birthday, the first since her parents passed. He transformed the living room with balloons, fairy lights, and a small banner that read, "For the girl who taught us how to love again." Elena walked in and froze. He was standing there in a navy suit, holding a cake, smiling like a man who finally understood what mattered. "You did all this?" she asked softly. "With a little help from my assistant," he said, winking at Maya. "Uncle Adrian said birthdays matter more than surgeries," Maya added proudly. Elena laughed, and for the first time her laughter carried no pain. As they sang for Maya, Adrian knelt, but this time not to the child, to the woman beside him. He pulled out a small velvet box. Elena gasped. "Adrian, you once said I didn't know how to put family first," he began. "You were right, but you taught me. Both of you did. And now, I don't ever want to go a day without choosing you, choosing us." Tears streamed down her face as Maya clapped her little hands, shouting, "Say yes, Aunt Elena!" She laughed through tears. "Of course I will," she whispered. He slipped the ring on her finger, and in that moment, every scar, emotional, physical, invisible, felt like it had finally healed. Months later, they got married in a small garden ceremony behind the house. Just friends, colleagues, and one little flower girl, Maya, who danced barefoot across the grass. Elena looked radiant in white, and Adrian couldn't stop smiling. When they exchanged vows, his voice trembled slightly. "You taught me that saving lives means nothing if I can't live mine with the people I love." The crowd applauded softly as Maya ran to hug them both. And for anyone watching, it was impossible to tell she wasn't their biological child. The love in their eyes said otherwise. They say love doesn't always come easy. Sometimes it breaks you before it heals you. Sometimes it hides behind loss, waiting for courage to find it again. But when it does, when it finally comes home, it stays. Years had passed since the day Adrian knelt in that living room. Time had done what it always does. It softened the edges, but never erased the story written between them. The house was still the same one Maya's parents had left behind. Only now, it was filled with new memories. Breakfasts that turned into food fights, movie nights that ended in sleepy cuddles, and laughter that echoed through every room. Maya, no longer the little girl clutching a melted ice cream dream, was now 18. Her voice was deeper, her smile brighter, and her heart finally whole again. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the cap of her high school graduation gown. From the doorway, Adrian watched her, pride glowing in his tired but gentle eyes. The house carried a calm energy now, the kind that only comes from surviving the worst and choosing to love every day. Elena moved through the kitchen, humming softly while decorating a small cake, a quiet symbol of the peace they had all built together. Guests began to arrive, old friends, neighbors, and colleagues who had witnessed their journey from chaos to calm. Even the lawyer who once doubted them watched quietly, smiling as the once fractured family finally moved as one. Outside, the backyard had been transformed into a small celebration space. String lights twinkled above, and laughter floated through the evening air. Adrian stood before the gathering, offering words not rehearsed, but heartfelt. He reflected on a time when he thought love meant sacrifice, when saving lives seemed more important than saving himself. But they had shown him that love is not what you lose, it is what you build, even when it hurts. The crowd responded with soft applause, and Maya embraced him, a mixture of joy and relief in her young heart. Elena, too, looked on with tears in her eyes, their family now whole in a way that felt almost impossible months ago. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the lights had dimmed, Maya sat quietly on the porch swing, the same one where her mother once read to her. Elena and Adrian watched from the doorway, enveloped in the calm of a home finally at peace. Maya reflected on how, once, she had thought her parents were gone forever. But through the love of these two people, she had found a family, a home, and a life that honored the promise her mother had left behind. In the years that followed, the house became a place full of even more memories. Photos of Maya in college, celebrations of anniversaries, and countless moments of laughter and love. On a shelf, a framed picture of the three of them captured a perfect moment of unity, with Adrian's neat handwriting inscribed in the corner. Family isn't always by blood. Sometimes, it's by promise. Love, they realized, doesn't always knock. Sometimes it sneaks in through grief, through arguments, through laughter that turns into something deeper. And when it finally settles, when two people choose to stay even after breaking, that is not just love. That is redemption. Sometimes, the greatest promises aren't made in words, but in the way someone stays when it's easier to walk away. For Adrian and Elena, love wasn't about perfection. It was about rebuilding piece by piece until broken hearts began to trust again. And maybe that's what true love really is, not the kind that burns fast and fades, but the kind that chooses you over and over in the quiet moments. If this story touched your heart tonight, remember to subscribe, because next time we're telling another story that reminds you, every scar has a story, and every story deserves to be told. New stories soon. Subscribe and turn on the bell for your next emotional journey.
Subscribe for more echoes.